The legend of Cairn the Iron was known by everyone. Not just known, told to children instead of bedtime stories. How 30 years ago the demonic war cut down half the continent. How the armies of men retreated year after year until only the last cities remained and the last people willing to stand in them. How one common soldier from the provinces stood at the iron gates and did not move from his place. 3 days of battle, 7 demonic commanders. A horde that broke not from exhaustion, from fear of one man. Cairn the Iron. The Living Shield. An official royal title with a golden seal. A pension. A house in any city. A place in the chronicles that would remain for centuries. A hero they no longer make. Cairn chose a quiet village. He built a house on the outskirts, far from the people who looked at him like an icon. He married. He waited a long time for a son. The son was born when Cairn was 45. Cairn named him Rain, and began to prepare him. Rain did not remember a time when he was not training. At 4, balance, breathing, stances, until his legs stopped obeying. At 6, a wooden sword. At 7, a real one, lightened. At 8, sparring with his father without allowances for age, with falls onto hard ground, with bruises that had no time to fade. Cairn was not a sadist. He was a man for whom war had become the only language, the only way to love, through pain and survival. He himself had been made that way. He had survived. So it works. The logic of a man who was broken and did not notice it. The mother, Vera, watched from the window and said nothing. Not from weakness. From that particular fear of a man who has been through something that ordinary words cannot reach. At 9 years old, Rain's aura began to manifest. Cairn felt it first. He knew auras better than any mage the war had taught him. The aura of a warrior, hot, direct. The aura of a mage, fluid, changeable. The aura of a demon, dark, cold, with that pressure that makes animals flee without understanding why. Rain stood in the training yard and looked at his father. 10 years old, eyes like an adult's. Not angry, not frightened, cold as winter stone, with a patience that children do not have. An endless patience. Cairn looked at him and understood. He had not created a warrior. He had created something for which there is no name in the human language, and the only thing the legendary warrior could think to do in response was to lock him away. In the morning, Cairn showed his son the basement. "You will live here." Rain looked at the dark gap of the doorway. Stone walls, earthen floor, one narrow window near the ceiling. Did I do something wrong? No. Then why? Because it is necessary. Rain turned to his father. He looked at him with that expression that frightened Cairn most of all. No tears, no anger, no childlike incomprehension, just a cold assessment. Like the gaze not of a child, but of something inside a child's shell. Cairn let him down, closed the door. A bolt, a lock, a chain with enough length to move around the basement. He left. He did not look back, because he knew that if he did, he would not be able to. The rats left in the second year. The spider that Rain had observed for 3 months in the corner disappeared in the third. Living things felt him before they understood what they were feeling. Rain trained in the darkness, strikes at the air, stances, movement in the confined space. Not because he wanted to be stronger, simply because there was nothing else. His body did what it knew while his mind worked separately. He thought a great deal. Not about escape, about reasons. About the father who had made him this way and then become frightened of his own work. About the world outside that he had not seen since the age of 10. About what he would become when he left. And whether he would leave at all as the same person who had entered. The answer to the last question came on its own. No, not the same. Something else. The interesting question was what, exactly? In the 5th year, the mother stopped coming to the door. Cairn brought food alone. Different footsteps. Heavier, slower. Rain listened and read the sounds like a book. His father was aging. Lonely. Carrying something heavy inside. That was audible even through the door. His mother had died or left. There was no point in asking. Cairn would not say. Rain knew this as surely as he knew the dimensions of his basement with his eyes closed. He did not cry. Not because he felt nothing, because he felt differently. Coldly, without tears, like a distant pain that exists but does not interfere with thought. In the 7th year, he noticed what was happening to the chain. The metal grew dull where the aura was strongest. Small spots of corrosion spread from his wrist like cracks from a blow. Not from moisture. The aura was seeping into the metal and destroying it from within. Rain sat down and began to study this. He did not hurry. He had time. Oppressive, empty, endless time, more than enough. He had learned to work with it as with a tool, to observe, to think, not to waste attention. By the 9th year, the chain looked the same on the outside. Inside it was rot, permeated through and through by his aura, ready to crumble at a single movement. Rain could have left 6 months ago. He did not leave. He waited, not out of fear, simply because there was nowhere to hurry. The world outside was not going anywhere. Cairn was not going anywhere. The anger of 10 years was not going anywhere. It had long since become part of him, like blood, like breath, calm and cold and eternal. Rain was 20 years old when he stood up, grasped the chain, and felt the metal crumble to dust between his fingers. Silently. He rose without haste, stretched, for the first time without the restriction of the chain's length. A strange sensation, almost forgotten. He walked to the door, his hand on the wood. The aura entered the lock like water into a crack. The metal darkened, crystallized, crumbled. The door opened on its own. Rain stepped into the corridor. He stopped. Morning light from the gap beneath the outer door, the smell of wood and smoke. The air was different, without dampness, without stone, just air. He stood and breathed for a few seconds. He did not feel triumphant. He simply noted this moment, this smell, this difference between what had been and what was now. Footsteps upstairs. Cairn always woke early, a habit of war. Rain went up the stairs. Cairn stood in the kitchen with his back turned, lighting the stove. He heard the footsteps and turned around. A long silence. The father looked at the son looked at the father. Cairn had aged greatly. His shoulders were slightly hunched, not from weakness but from a burden that could not be set down. His hands remembered the sword but were no longer that force. His hair was entirely white. In his eyes, that very fear, not new, old, long carried, grown familiar over 10 years. Rain, father, how did you get out? The aura destroyed the chain. 6 months ago, I waited. Cairn did not ask why he had waited. Perhaps he understood on his own. I was afraid of you, he said. I know. There was something in you. Not human. Even then. You made me this way. Yes? Cairn lowered his gaze for the first time in the conversation. The legendary warrior looked at the floor of his kitchen. I understood that. I understood it too late. You did not stop what you feared, said Rain. You grew it in darkness and silence. 10 years. Cairn was silent. You gave me life, Rain continued, and took it away for 10 years. That does not balance out. I know. Then you understand what will happen. Cairn raised his gaze. He looked at his son, at the dark aura that swirled around him in a visible haze. That had not happened before, which meant it had grown to this over 10 years. At the eyes, cold, adult, without anger and without forgiveness. I understand, said Cairn. He did not ask for mercy. The legendary warrior did not know how to ask for mercy. Rain left the house a few minutes later, in blood. Not his own. He stopped on the porch. He looked at the village below, at the morning sky, at the trees along the road, at the world he had not seen for 10 years. A large world, cold and foreign, and not yet knowing that he was in it. It would know soon. Rain stepped off the porch and walked forward. The village felt him before it saw him. The dogs fell silent all at once. Birds burst from the trees along the street. The horse at the smithy began to grow nervous, to back away, until it tore its tether and trotted off somewhere. Then the people. A woman at the well turned around, saw him, saw the blood on his hands. She opened her mouth. Something changed in her face. That expression that comes before fear, earlier than fear. The body says go while the mind is still thinking. She left. Quickly, without looking back. After her, one more, then another. Children first, without words, as though their instinct worked more cleanly than that of adults. Rain walked down the emptying street. He looked. For the first time he saw the world after 10 years. These houses, these fences, the morning smoke from the chimneys. An ordinary village, an ordinary life that he had not had. He did not grieve over it, he simply noted it. The guards came, 5 of them, provincial, well-armed, with the look of men who know their business. The senior one stopped 10 paces away. He looked at Rain. At the blood. He felt the aura. It was visible that he felt it. His face changed for a fraction of a second, but he stood his ground. Duty held him. Drop your weapon. I have no weapon. Show your hands. Get down on the ground. Rain looked at him. At all 5. He saw how 2 on the right and left were slowly moving to flank. Good training, correct movement. No, he said. The senior one nodded. An order without words. Rain stepped forward and struck. Not with a fist, with his aura. A wave of dark pressure, short and sharp like a blow from a shield. The 5 were thrown apart. Alive, nothing fatal, with bruised ribs and extinguished consciousness. Rain stepped over one of them. He walked on, simply going where he had been going. The news ran faster than he did. By the evening of the first day, the provincial city knew. By the morning of the second, the capital received a pigeon. By the end of the week, every tavern within 200 miles was discussing one name, Rain. Son of Cairn the Iron, aura of demonic class, heading north. Killed his father. 100 gold for his head, set by the governor. The first bounty hunter found him 8 days later. The professional moved quietly, kept his distance for 2 days, studied before attacking. He struck at night by the campfire, counting on a sleeping man having no time to react. Rain was not asleep. He did not sleep deeply at all since he had begun living in the basement. Their sleep could cost a life, and his body had learned that on its own. He heard movement 30 paces away, stood up, turned around before the bounty hunter crossed the line of the fire. The man froze. He saw Rain's eyes in the light of the embers, dark, sleepless, cold, like those of a man who has long since ceased to be surprised by anything. A moment of hesitation. That was enough. Rain reached him in 2 steps, struck with an open palm to the chest. The aura did the rest. The bounty hunter flew into a tree, slid down the bark, remained sitting. Alive. Why did you come? Rain asked. 100 gold, the bounty hunter breathed with difficulty. Not much for a life. I did not think you were like this. Now you know. Rain looked down at him. Go. Tell the others what you saw. The bounty hunter did not understand at first. He thought it was a trap, that if he stood up he would get a knife in the back. Then he stood up. He left. Quickly. Rain sat back down by the fire. He looked into the flames, the first of many. The bounty hunters came like waves, one after another, with growing boldness as the reward grew. A fire mage. Rain felt how his aura absorbed the heat directly from the air. The fire died at his very skin without leaving burns. The mage looked at this with the face of a man who had seen the impossible. Perhaps he had. 2 working in tandem. A good team with practiced movements. For the first time, Rain received a cut on his shoulder, shallow. He stopped. He touched it. He looked at the 2 who were waiting for him to become frightened or angry. He was neither frightened nor angry. He simply struck harder than usual, both into the trees, barely alive. A sniper with a crossbow from 300 meters. The bolt stopped 20 centimeters from his chest, hung for a second in the air, as though it had struck an invisible wall, fell into the grass. Rain did not even turn his head in the direction of the shot. 4 bounty hunters at once, the largest group so far. Rain let them surround him, stood in the center, closed his eyes for a second, then exhaled. The aura expanded in a flash. The 4 fell without reaching him. The reward grew at a geometric rate. 100 gold became 200 after the first 10 bounty hunters. 500 after 20. 1,000 when the fire mage returned and reported that his fire had not worked at all. 2,000 when out of an expedition of 15 people, 3 returned. 3,000 when no one returned from the next group. Not because Rain killed everyone. Some simply ran and did not report back. Alive but broken. Not in body, in something else. Something in his gaze, in his aura, did something to people that was difficult to describe. One bounty hunter returned to the city, surrendered his weapons, and went to a monastery. When asked what had happened, he said one thing. He looked at me, and I understood that the life I was living was empty. The report landed on the royal table a month after Rain had come up from the basement. 3 independent mages confirmed. Aura of demonic class, above that of an average combat demon. The source. A human, 20 years old, no weapons, no magical education. The advisor stood by the window and waited for the king to finish reading. No weapons, the king said at last. Yes, your majesty, has never used a weapon. Only the aura, and 38 bounty hunters. 42 as of today. 42, the king repeated. He looked out the window. His father was the finest warrior I had seen in my lifetime. And this man killed him. Yes. What does demonic level mean in practice? The advisor gathered his thoughts. In practice, it means that ordinary steel does not touch him. Fire and lightning magic is absorbed by the aura. Physically, he stopped a bolt fired from 300 meters without a shield and without a spell. A pause. The mages say they have never seen anything like it in a human. The king stood up. He walked across the study. Demonic level threat, he said. Officially, from today. And an army. 5,000, the Northern Corps, the finest. Your Majesty, one man. One man killed 7 demonic commanders, said the king. His father. And we still tell children about it. He stopped. I will not wait for this one to become a legend. The army. Rain walked through the forest and did not know about the army. He knew about the reward. That was obvious from how frequently the bounty hunter's visits had increased. He constantly felt surveillance behind him. 1, 2, sometimes more. He paid no particular attention. The forest was growing denser, colder. More right. On the 18th day after coming out of the basement, he felt something different. Not bounty hunters, something else. They appeared from behind the trees at night. 6 of them. Tall, gray-skinned, with eyes that glowed in the darkness with a dull red. Movements not human. Too fluid, too silent for their size. Remnants of the demonic race. Rain knew about them. In the basement, there had been one book that Karen had given in the first year, A History of the Demonic War. He had reread it so many times that he knew it by heart. He knew that after the defeat of the Horde, part of the demons had scattered across the northern forests. They hid. They survived. These attacked without words. The first 2 Rain struck with one movement, a wide wave of aura. Both fell. The third leapt from above from a tree. Rain caught him by the throat with one hand, lowered him to the ground without hurrying. The 4th and 5th stopped. They looked. The 6th, the one who stood at the back, apparently the leader, made a sign with his hand. The 2 froze. Silence. Rain stood with the 3rd demon in his hand. The demon was not struggling, simply hanging and watching with red eyes. Rain lowered him to the ground. Let go. You are from the Horde, he said. The leader stepped forward. He looked at Rain with that expression that Rain already knew well. A mixture of fear and something resembling recognition. Your aura, said the demon. The voice was low, with a hoarseness, but the speech was intelligible. We felt it 3 days ago, and decided to attack. We attack everything that moves in the north. Instinct. The leader looked at the 2 lying on the ground. We did not expect this. What? That a human would stop us with a single movement. Rain looked at the 6 of them. At the gray skin, at the red eyes, at the way they stayed together, back to back, with the look of creatures accustomed to being hunted. How many of you are there? He asked. 6 here. More in the forest. Scattered. The leader spoke carefully, weighing each word. 30 years hiding. From people. From everything. Rain thought. In his mind, not pity. Something else. Practical. He was tired of fighting alone. The bounty hunters came in waves, and soon something more serious than bounty hunters would come. Fighting alone against an army was possible, but wasteful. You fought in the demonic war, he said. Yes, you know how. Better than humans. Few of you remain. Yes. Under my command there will be more of you, said Rain. Not now. In time. If you are useful, the leader looked at him. You are proposing that we serve a human. I am proposing that you stop hiding, said Rain. That is different. A long silence. The demons exchanged glances without words, with that quick exchange used by creatures that can feel each other's auras. What do you want in return? Asked the leader. Nothing particular for now, said Rain. Walk alongside. Do not attack without an order. Learn not to be afraid. Not to be afraid of what? Of everything, said Rain. Fear is a poor advisor. I know this better than most. There were 19 of them by the end of the week. The leader, Rain called him first for lack of a name, as demons did not use names among themselves, brought the rest out of the forest. Wary, wild, with that particular mixture of pride and exhaustion that belongs to those who have long been in hiding, but remember being otherwise. Rain demanded nothing from them immediately. They walked alongside. They ate separately. The demons had their own food, their own rhythm of life. Gradually, the distance shortened. First walked beside Rain in silence for several hours one day. Then he said, Your father killed our commander at the Iron Gates. I know. You killed your father. Yes? Is that just? Rain thought for a few steps. It was necessary, he said. Justice is a different word. I do not concern myself with justice. What do you concern yourself with? I have not decided yet, Rain answered honestly. First looked at him with the expression that in demons meant something between respect and curiosity. An honest answer. I see no point in giving any other kind. On the 23rd day after coming out of the basement, they arrived. Not bounty hunters, not ordinary guards. The royal army stretched along the forest road ahead. Rain felt it an hour away. Thousands of auras, metal, horses, the magical shields of the advance units. 5,000. First stood alongside and looked ahead. Many. Yes, we will not win in a direct fight. No, Rain agreed. Then, Rain looked at the forest, at the trees, at the shadows between them, at how the army was moving along the only road because the forest on both sides was too dense for a formation. They are moving along the road, he said. Yes, the forest is ours. First understood. The army stopped when the advance unit found the road ahead empty. Completely. Not a person, not a trace. The commander, experienced from the Northern Corps, felt that something was wrong a second before it began. From the forest on both sides, simultaneously came pressure. Not an attack. Simply the pressure of an aura. Enormous, cold, covering the first three ranks like a wave covers a shore. The horses went wild. The men, those who were sensitive to auras, backed away. Those who were not sensitive saw the faces of their neighbors and backed away too. From the shadow between the trees stepped one man. Rain stood on the road before the army. He looked at 5,000 soldiers. They looked at him. The commander rode forward on his horse. The horse did not want to. He had to force it. In the name of the king. Surrender. No, said Rain. There are 5,000 of us. I see. You are alone. Rain almost smiled. From the corner of his mouth coldly. No, he said. From the forest on both sides stepped 19 demons. The army wavered. It did not break. Professionals, training held. But it wavered. The rear ranks pressed into the middle ones. The middle ranks pressed into the front. The commander looked at the demons. At Rain. At the demons again. You command demons, he said. They walk alongside, Rain corrected. That is different. That is heresy. That is fact. Rain looked at him. Commander, I do not want to kill your men. They are soldiers doing what they were ordered. That is not their choice. Then surrender. No. Rain spoke without anger, without threat. Simply as a man stating the obvious. Take your men away. Tell the king I am heading north. Not toward the capital, not toward the cities. North. To where there is no one. The order is to take you. I know what the order is, said Rain. I am telling you what will happen if you try to carry it out here. Your men will go home, or they will not. The choice is yours. The commander looked at him for a long time. At the aura that was visible even to the naked eye, a dark haze around the figure standing on the road, at the 19 demons on the flanks, at the horses that had still not calmed down. He turned to his men. He saw their faces. He turned his horse around. "Retreat," he said. The army was gone by evening. Rain sat by the fire alone. The demons had settled farther away, as was their custom. He looked into the flames. First approached. He sat down across from him without an invitation. Over the last few days he had stopped asking permission, simply came. Rain did not object. "They will return," said First. "Yes." "With more. We will retreat into the forest again." "Perhaps," said Rain, "or we will not. What will change? There will be more of us." Rain looked into the fire. "There are more demons in the northern forests. You said so. Scattered. Wild. Not all will agree. Those who are tired of hiding will agree." First thought. "Why do you need an army?" he asked. "You are stronger than most on your own. What are you building?" "A good question." Rain had been thinking about it over the last few days, without hurrying, without rushing, as he had grown accustomed to thinking over 10 years of silence. "I am not building a state," he said. "I do not want power over people. I do not want revenge on cities and kings. Then what?" "A place," said Rain. "A place where one is not touched, where no one looks with that expression I have seen all my life." He paused. "And an existence that does not have to be proven every day with a sword in hand." First looked at him for a long time. "For 30 years we have wanted the same thing," he said at last. Quietly. "I know," said Rain. The fire crackled between them. The cold north rustled with trees in the darkness. A 20-year-old man with the aura of a demon and 19 creatures who had survived the war that should have destroyed them sat by one fire and said nothing. This was the beginning of something. The north changed gradually. The trees grew taller, darker, with roots that thrust out of the earth like bones. Snow lay even in places the sun reached in summer. It simply lay there, gray, old, not melting. The air was different, cleaner, sharper, with the taste of something old and forgotten. Rain walked and felt right here. Not comfortable. Right. Like an object placed where it belongs. Behind him walked 23 demons now. 4 had joined on the second day after the army, emerged from the forest on their own, silently taken their place at the end of the column. First did not ask them why. Rain did not ask either. They simply walked. On the 4th day, farther north than their previous camp, they found ruins. An old fort, one of those built before the demonic war, when the north was considered a dangerous frontier for other reasons. The stone had blackened with age. Part of the walls had collapsed. The tower on the eastern side stood halfway. But the foundation was monolithic, deep, built for centuries. Rain walked the perimeter. First walked alongside. "An old place," said the demon. "Yes. About 300 years. People died here." "People died everywhere," said Rain. "That does not make a place bad." First looked at him with the expression that in him meant agreement without words. Rain stopped in the center of the courtyard. He looked at the walls, at the sky between them, at how the forest had pressed almost up to the stone. The trees had over 300 years claimed all the space they were given. "Here," he said. "Here what?" "We stay." The work began without a command. It simply began. The demons proved unexpectedly practical. Not builders, but creatures who had survived in the forest for 3 decades knew how to do many things with their hands. They hauled stone, cleared rubble, patched walls with whatever they found. Rain worked alongside them. He did not lead. He did. This was noticed. One of the newer demons, young, no older than Rain by his species' reckoning, one day approached and simply began doing what Rain was doing, without words, simply alongside. By the end of the first week, the fort was fit for habitation. Rough, without comforts, but with a roof, walls, a fire in the center of the courtyard. A place. The bounty hunters found them on the 12th day, 5 of them. Good ones, visible at once. They moved in single file, did not talk, each with a defined role in the group. Professionals who had picked up a trail and did not let go. They approached the fort from the north, the only side without demons on watch, which spoke to good reconnaissance. Rain met them at the gate. Alone, the group's leader stopped 15 paces away. He looked at the fort, at the black walls, at the smoke rising from the courtyard, then at Rain. "The reward is 10,000 gold, he said. Voice level, businesslike. 12 for alive. Rain looked at him. "You know what happened to those who came before you." "I know." The leader did not flinch. "They were worse." "You think you are better?" "I know I am better," he said, not with arrogance, simply as a fact. Rain studied him. Around 40, with the movements of a man accustomed to fighting in varied conditions. Scars, old, properly placed, from real fights rather than chance ones. Behind him 4 more, also good, also calm. Interesting people. "What is your name?" Rain asked. The leader was surprised. He concealed it well, but Rain saw. "Cert." "Cert." Rain looked at him. "You came for the reward." "Yes. 10,000 gold. 12 for alive. What will you spend it on?" Cert looked at him for a few seconds. He was trying to understand the point of the question. "Maintaining the unit," he said at last. "Equipment. Debts. Debts. To people who trusted me before." Something else in his voice now, something alive. "2 of my men died on a job 3 years ago. Their families." Rain was silent. He looked at Cert. "You are a good commander," he said. "I am told so." "Then why waste yourself on a job that will end the same way as the previous 47? 48, Cert corrected. "I counted." 48, Rain agreed. Not one returned with a victory. Some did not return at all. A pause. "You know this." "I know." "And you came anyway." "Debts," said Cert simply. Rain thought. He looked at the 5 of them, at the weariness they were hiding, at the equipment, good but worn, the gear of people who had been working a long time without rest, at Cert, who had come on a job with no chance of success because he had a debt to the dead. "How many people are in your unit?" 5 here. 14 in total." "Where are the others?" "A day's travel away." "Waiting for a signal?" "A signal about what?" "That I found you and am alive." Rain looked at the fort behind him, at its walls, at the courtyard, at the work that still needed much doing. At the 23 demons who knew how to fight but did not know how to do many other things. "Cert, I have a different proposal." The man waited. "Your debts will be settled by work here. Not a head on a platter. Work." Rain spoke evenly, without pressure. "Your people know how to fight? Do they know how to do anything else? 2 are builders. 1 is a blacksmith. The rest are versatile." "A blacksmith," Rain repeated. A blacksmith was desperately needed. The demons had to make do with old weapons that kept breaking. "A good blacksmith," Cert added. "The best I have seen." "Then this is how it is." Rain looked at him. "You bring everyone. You live here, you work here. Payment is not in gold immediately, but honestly and against the debts. In a year the debts are settled, and after that you decide for yourselves." Cert was silent for a long time. "You understand that I am obliged to report you to the king," he said. "You are already here," said Rain. "If you only wanted to report, you would not have come yourself." More silence. "There are demons in there," said Cert, nodding toward the fort. "Yes. My people have not worked alongside demons. They will get used to it. That is not quick. Quick is not needed. What is needed is right." Cert turned to his 4. They looked on without fear, with that professional appraisal that said they were weighing, calculating, deciding. One of them shrugged. As if to say, "Why not?" Cert turned back to Rain. 12,000 for alive is more than you are offering. 12,000 will not be paid to you because you will not bring me in alive," said Rain without anger. "I am offering what you will actually receive." Cert smiled for the first time in the conversation. Coldly, professionally. "You are an honest one. No point in being otherwise." "All right," said Cert. "Tomorrow I will bring the others." The fort filled up over 2 weeks. 14 of Cert's people plus 23 demons. It was loud, tense, and at times on the edge of breaking. The humans looked at the demons, The demons looked at the humans, and both sides remembered the war, if from different sides. Rain did not intervene into minor conflicts, he observed. The first serious one came on the third day. One of Surt's men, young, hot-tempered, with a father who had died in the demonic war, picked a fight with a demon over a spot by the fire. Rain walked over. He stood between them. Said nothing, simply stood. Both looked at him, then at each other. They separated. Surt came over later. You said nothing. There was no need, Rain replied. Rules need to be established. There is one rule, said Rain. Here, you do not touch your own. Who counts as your own? Each person decides for themselves in time. That is not a rule. That is a hope. Rules are broken, said Rain. Hope is different. Surt looked at him with the expression of a man who disagreed but had found no counter-argument. The blacksmith, his name was Mott, a short, broad man with hands twice the usual thickness, found coal in the rocks to the west of the fort on the fourth day. This was almost unbelievably fortunate. By the end of the week, the forge was smoking, and the first blades were coming out of it. Rough but functional. First took one, weighed it, nodded. In demons that meant more than words. Mott looked at the demon with the curiosity of a craftsman, professional, without politics. Your hands are different, he said to First. Your grip is different. The hilt needs to be different. A hilt is a hilt, said First. No, said Mott. Give me your hand. First extended it. Mott took it, studied it, without fear, simply looking the way one looks at a material one is about to work with. The following week, First carried a blade fitted to his hand. That was small but real. Rain observed all of this and thought, not about defeating the king. That was not the goal. Not about revenge. Revenge had stayed in the basement with his father. He thought about what happens when you gather people who have nowhere to go and creatures the whole world wants to destroy and put them alongside each other. Something comes of it. Not immediately. Not beautifully. But it comes. First came over one evening and sat down beside him without preamble. Humans call us demons, he said. I know. We call ourselves differently. In our language, Sar. It means roughly those who see in the darkness. Rain looked at him. I will call you Sar, he said. First was silent for a moment. For 30 years, no one has asked what we call ourselves, he said. I know. That matters. I know, Rain repeated. I myself was long what others called me. He looked into the fire. I did not like it. A month after the fort, a messenger arrived. Alone, without a guard, or the guard was there, but a smart one, in the forest, not showing itself. A man of around 50, in good clothing without insignia, with the face of a diplomat accustomed to showing exactly as much as needed. Surt caught him on the approach and brought him to the fort. Rain met him in the courtyard. Who sent you? The king's advisor, said the messenger, personally. Not the king himself. The advisor believes it is better to begin a conversation without principles. A wise advisor. Very, the messenger agreed without irony. Rain nodded toward the fort. They went inside and sat by the fire. The messenger looked around at the demons, at Surt's people, at the walls of the former fort that had become something living. He looked without fear. His profession did not allow it. Speak, said Rain. His Majesty has declared you a threat of demonic class, I know, and wishes to remove that status. Rain looked at him. In return. In return, you remain in the north. You do not approach cities or roads. The messenger spoke evenly. De facto your own territory. Without official recognition, but also without armies. Why? Because the next army would have to be twice the size. The messenger did not embellish, and the advisor is not certain that would help. An honest advisor. A wise one, the messenger corrected. Honesty here coincided with wisdom, Rain thought. He looked at the fire, at the fort, at the people and the Sar who lived alongside each other and were building something that had no name yet. The Sar, he said. What? The demons, as you call them. They are part of the agreement. The messenger hesitated for the first time in the conversation. That is, more complicated. For whom? For the king. For the people. 3 decades of fear do not leave quickly. I understand 3 decades of fear, said Rain quietly, and there was something in his voice that made the messenger inexplicably unable to find a reply. Silence. They need amnesty, said Rain. Not recognition, not rights, not a place in the capital, simply to be left alone. For demon hunters not to be sent. That is difficult to sell to the king. Sell it to the advisor. The advisor will sell it to the king, the messenger thought. The condition is the SAR in the agreement, said Rain. Otherwise, there is no conversation. You understand this is unprecedented. Unprecedented, Rain agreed. 30 years ago, there was also no such thing. A man with an aura of demonic class. Unprecedented times require unprecedented solutions. The messenger looked at him for a long time. I need to return with an answer, he said. Return. Rain stood. We will give you food for the road. I will not be poisoned. I know. Simply food. Rain looked at him without warmth but also without threat. People who come to talk leave fed. That is the rule here. For the first time in the meeting, the messenger almost smiled. The advisor sent his answer 10 days later. Not by messenger, by letter. Short, without a royal seal, meaning personal, not official. Rain read it twice. The SAR. Amnesty. De facto, without a document, without an announcement. Simply that demon hunters would no longer receive state funding for the northern territories. A cowardly formulation, Rain thought, but a workable one. The territory, north of the Grey River. Without official borders, without a map, simply an understanding. The bounty on his head, lifted, replaced with the status of neutral threat. Not an enemy, not an ally. Simply something that exists in the north and is better left alone. At the end of the letter, the advisor had added one line without an official tone. Your father was a great man. It is a pity that greatness does not know how to be passed on correctly. Rain folded the letter. He thought about Cairn, about the old man at the stove who had looked at his son and said, I understand. Perhaps he had understood. Too late. But he had understood. First read the letter when Rain gave it to him. He looked at the paper for a long time. Amnesty, he said. De facto. What does that mean? It means there is nothing on paper. Rain looked at him. But the hunters will not be sent anymore. It can be broken. Yes? And then what? Then we will see, said Rain. An agreement holds not by paper. It holds because it benefits both sides to hold it. First thought. For 30 years we lived without agreements, he said. I know. It is more frightening than it seems, to begin trusting again. I know, said Rain. I am only learning myself. First looked at him. At the 20-year-old man with the dark aura and the cold eyes and 10 years of basement behind him. You are a strange man, Rain. Perhaps. That is not a bad thing. I know. The first winter in the north was harsh. Snow came in early autumn and showed no sign of leaving. Frosts. Real, northern ones, the kind that split wood. The fort held heat worse than was wanted. Old walls, gaps everywhere. Mott worked without stopping. The forge burned around the clock. The people and the SAR pressed together toward the fire, not because they had become friends in a month, simply because the cold made no distinction between a human and a demon, and that in itself meant something. Rain walked through the fort at night, not because he could not sleep. He could. Simply because the nights here were special. A real silence, without a bottom. The kind in which you can hear your own pulse. After 10 years in the basement, he loved silence. But the silence of the basement had been dead. This one was alive. One night on the wall of the fort, he encountered the young SAR. The one who had worked alongside him from the very beginning, without words. He stood looking at the snow-covered forest. Rain stood beside him. They said nothing. What is your name? Rain asked. In the SAR language, First had shown him a few words over the weeks. The young SAR looked at him. He was surprised and did not conceal it. He said his name in his own language, long, with guttural sounds, unpronounceable for a human. Say it shorter, said Rain. He thought. Sir, he said, a short form. Sir. Rain tried it. Good. They were silent again. You were in the basement a long time, said Sir suddenly. First told me, 10 years. We hid for 30. I know. It is somewhat alike. Somewhat, Rain agreed. Your anger has not stopped. No. Rain looked at the forest. It has stopped being the main thing. What has become the main thing? Rain thought. For a long time, honestly. This, he said at last. A gesture of his hand toward the fort, toward the lights in the windows, toward the snow, toward everything that was here and had been nowhere a month ago. Sir looked. This has no name, he said. Not yet, said Rain. Spring came slowly. The snow left reluctantly, clinging to shadows, melting last in the corners where the sun did not reach. The forest became different. Green, alive, with the smell of earth thawed after a long sleep. The fort was different too. The walls repaired properly now, not hastily. A new tower on the north side, Mott and 2 of Surt's men had built it over 2 months. The forge expanded. A vegetable garden, small, a trial, laid on the southern side where there was more sun. There were more people now, not bounty hunters, others. 3 had come on their own from different places with different stories. What they had in common was one thing. They had nowhere to go, and they had heard that in the north there was a place that did not ask too many questions. The Sar had grown as well, 7 new ones from deep in the forest. Wild, cautious. First worked with them, bringing them in gradually. Rain stood on the wall and looked at all of it. 37 people and Sar. A fort that, a month ago, had been ruins. A forge that worked. A vegetable garden that had not yet given anything but wood. Surt came and stood beside him. There have been no bounty hunters for a long time, he said. The reward was lifted. Some may come without a reward. Demon hunters. Just soldiers with ambitions. If they come, we will deal with it, said Rain. You are calm. No point in worrying about what does not exist yet. Surt was quiet. He looked at the garden below where one of his men and the young Sar, now simply called Sir, were digging the earth side by side. Not talking, simply working. Rain, said Surt. Yes. What will you tell them when they ask who we are? Who will ask? Merchants when they come. Travelers. Then perhaps the king again. Someone will ask what this place is and who lives here, Rain thought. He looked at the fort. At the walls, at the people, at the Sar, at the smoke from Mott's forge. At how the young Sar, Seer, was explaining something to the man beside him with gestures, without a shared language, yet they understood each other. I will tell the truth, Rain answered. What truth? That those who had nowhere to go live here. He paused. And who found somewhere? Surt looked at him. That is not an answer to the question of who you are. It is the best answer I have for now. Below in the courtyard, First was saying something to a group of the new Sar. They listened, standing close together, with the look of creatures who for the first time in a long while were not looking over their shoulders. Mott came out of the forge, wiped his hands, looked at the sky, assessing the weather, as always. Surt called something down to his man, who answered and laughed. The laughter, alive, ordinary, rang out across the courtyard of the fort. The Sar looked toward the source of the sound. They exchanged glances. One of them slowly, uncertainly, for the first time made the same sound. An attempt at laughter. It came out strangely, not in a human way, but it came out. The man beside him did not laugh at it. He nodded. Rain watched. The anger was still there. It had not gone anywhere. 10 years in the darkness do not leave in a month. The cold inside him was his nature. That would not change. But alongside it something else. Without a name yet. Without a beautiful word. Simply something warm in a cold man. Small. Enough for now. Rain stood on the wall of a fort without a name in a forest. Without a name in a north that no one had wanted. He looked at what was beginning. Tor arrived at the start of the following spring with news. In the cities they are naming this place, he said over dinner. They have come up with a name. What name? Asked Surt. The basement, said Tor. They say the one from the basement lives there. That is what they call it. The basement. Silence at the table. Then Mott unexpectedly laughed. Loudly, the way only he could. "A good name," he said. "A bad name," said one of Surt's men. "Why bad?" Mott objected. "It is honest. We all came from some basement of our own." Silence. Rain looked at the fire. "The basement," he said quietly. He tried it by ear. He thought about that basement, about the stone walls, the earthen floor, the narrow strip of light in the little window, about 10 years of darkness that had made him what he had become. "Let it be the basement," he said. Everyone looked at him. "But not because we came from there," Rain continued, "because we came out." A different silence now, the kind that comes when words have landed exactly right. First at the table, for the first time, for the very first time, sitting at the same table as the people, looked at Rain. "Good," he said. "Simply good." Outside, the forest rustled with the first spring leaves. The fire burned. Mott poured for everyone from the jug Tor had brought from the south. "Sir," the young Tsar at the far end of the table, looked at the cup in his hands for a long time. Then he raised it. He did not clink. He did not know that custom. He simply held the cup raised. Beside him, the man he had not known a month ago raised his. Then, one more, and another. Rain last. The cold man with the dark aura and 10 years of darkness behind him held his cup and looked at what had come out of anger and time and the refusal to die in a basement. 37 people and Tsar. A fort with a name. The beginning of something that did not yet know its own boundaries. "To the basement," said Mott. "To the basement," the others answered. Tor did not arrive on the appointed day. This had not happened once in 8 months. Rain noted it and said nothing. One missed visit was no cause for alarm. Merchants are late, roads are bad, things happen. 3 days later, Tor arrived, without his mule, on foot, with one bag, with a face from which the usual merchant's liveliness had vanished. He arrived toward evening, passed through the courtyard, sat by the fire without asking permission. Rain sat across from him. He waited. "I was held up at the entrance to Gray's Edge," said Tor at last. "By whom?" "People of the new advisor." Tor spoke evenly, but held his hands too still, the sign of a man controlling himself deliberately. 3 hours. They asked about this place. How many people, weapons, the Tsar? How many of them? How they are organized? What did you say? Little. Tor looked at him. But not nothing. I am sorry. 3 hours is a long time and they had tools of persuasion. I understand. Rain, they are preparing. The new advisor is young and he needs a victory. Quick, loud. Tor spoke quietly. You are the perfect victory. Demonic level threat. Alliance with the remnants of the Horde, a fort in the north. For the capital that sounds beautiful and terrifying at the same time. When? I do not know exactly. Soon. Tor paused. I should not have come. They may have been watching. But you came. A deal, said Tor briefly. I do not abandon deals. Rain looked at him. You lost your mule there. Confiscated, said Tor without emotion. That is the lesser of the problems. Mott, Rain called. The blacksmith looked out from the forge. Get money from the reserve. Give Tor enough for a mule. That is not necessary, Tor began. It is, said Rain. You came and you warned me. That is worth a mule. Surt convened a council that same night. A small one. Rain, Surt, first Kel. 4 people by the fire, quietly, while the fort slept. How many people capable of fighting do we have? Surt began. 62, said Kel. Of those, 28 Tsar, humans, 34. Half of the humans without serious combat training. They will send more. They will send many more, First agreed. The advisor wants a victory. A victory is not given by small numbers against us. The forest, said Rain. Everyone looked. An army travels by roads. The forest does not welcome large units. We already know this. The first army stopped because it could not spread out. Rain spoke slowly, thinking aloud. But they took note of that. The second time they will come differently. How else? Asked Surt. Mages, said Kel. If mages want to take a forest fort, they clear the way. Fire along the perimeter, then infantry. We have Urt, said Surt. Is a 16-year-old boy with an unstable aura against combat mages of the Royal Corps, answered Kel without cruelty. This is not a fight. Silence. We need to know when and how many, said Rain. Without that, we can't plan. Reconnaissance? Yes. Who will go into the city? Asked Surt. Silence of a different kind. By morning, a volunteer appeared on his own. One of Surt's men. His name was Ren, not to be confused with Rain. Ren himself always laughed at the similarity of the names. 30 years old, with a face that knew how to be unremarkable, the right appearance for reconnaissance. A former city thief, then a smuggler. Then he ended up in Surt's squad because he could pass through where others could not. I know the gray border, he said. The streets, the people, the taverns. I have old contacts there. Contacts that can be trusted, asked Surt. The ones I pay, yes. How much time? 2 weeks. I'll find out the squad's composition, armament, approximate time frame. Rain looked at him. Ren. Yes. If they catch you, don't come back here. Go east. They'll only catch me if I let them, said Ren, with that smile of a former thief that said I'm serious. He left that same day. 2 weeks passed in work. Rain did not allow the fort to freeze in waiting. The worst thing one can do is wait for danger while idle. They built, learned, trained. Sar and Surt's men for the first time began practicing joint maneuvers, clumsily, with misunderstandings, with moments when Sar tactics and human tactics went in different directions. Kel took it upon himself to bring this together. No one expected it. Kel himself, it seemed, either. He stood before a mixed group, 6 humans, 6 Sar, and explained an envelopment movement. First stood nearby and translated the commands into the language the Sar understood. It worked, slowly, roughly, but it worked. Ren returned on the 13th day. Rain was on the wall when he saw him coming fast from the forest, alone, intact. Good, he went down to meet him. Ren entered the courtyard, looked around, out of habit, to check that everything was in place. Nodded to Rain. Speak. 3,000. Northern Corps plus mages, 8 combat ones. Ren spoke briefly, in a businesslike manner. Departure in 3 weeks. Moving in 2 columns, the main one by road, the second through the forest from the west to cut off the retreat. The western column, how many? 800. With mages, 3 of the 8. Commander, General 7. Old, experienced, doesn't like losing men, will act cautiously. Rain processed the information. Good work, he said. Ren nodded. Went inside, he was tired, it was visible. 2 weeks in a foreign city on edge takes its toll. Rain remained in the courtyard. Thinking. A council that same night, now with a map that Kel had drawn from memory. The forest, the fort, the roads, the rivers. The western column is more dangerous, said Kel. If they cut off the retreat from the west, we're in a bag. The main force attacks from the south. The western one comes around. We have nowhere to go. So the western column needs to be stopped earlier, said Surt. In the forest, added First. That's our advantage. 800 against 62, said Surt. In the forest at night, said First. 800 is a problem for the 800. They won't see us. Mages. 3. First looked at the map. Rain can handle 3. Not alone, said Rain. Everyone looked at him. Is not ready, said Kel. Is more ready than he seems, objected Rain. His aura is unstable. For the Academy, that's a flaw. In battle, it's a different matter. An unstable aura is unpredictable. Mages don't know how to defend against it because it doesn't follow the rules. Risky. Everything is risky, said Rain. Ren sat by the wall and listened. He was silent, his usual state after reconnaissance. He needed a few days to unwind. Rain noted his presence from the corner of his eye. Something small, background, caught his attention. Not a thought. Just caught. Rain put it aside for later. 5 days passed. The fort prepared quietly, without panic, with that business-like focus that people have when fear has been forged into action. Ren returned to his usual self, walking, working, smiling his former thief's smile. Everything normal, except for the Sar. Sar sense auras. It is their nature, more keenly than humans. Rain noticed that some of the younger Sar were giving Ren a wide berth. Not all, only those whose instinct was sharper. Rain called Seer. "Ren," he said, "what do you sense?" Sir thought for a long time. "Fear," he said at last. "Old fear, not new." "Explain." "New fear is when a person is afraid of what lies ahead." Sir spoke slowly, choosing words in a foreign language. "Old fear is when a person has already done something and is afraid of what he knows." Rain stood quietly. "Are you certain?" "No," Sir answered honestly. "But yes." Rain did not go to Ren right away. He waited another day, observed, saw things he had not seen before because he had not been looking, small things. Ren went to the western wall alone twice a day. The western wall faced the forest, and beyond it the road to the gray border. A signal could be sent from the western wall. Small, invisible to humans. Not to Sar. Rain called first. The western wall, yesterday and today. What came from there? First looked at him. Understood without extra words. "Light," he said. Short, directed. "I thought it was chance. A mirror. Glass." "Twice." "Twice," First agreed. "Chance does not repeat in the same way." Rain found Ren in the evening by the forge. Walked up. Stood beside him. Said nothing. Ren felt it. Turned. Saw Rain's face, the one that expressed nothing. The most dangerous face. "Rain, how long have you been with them?" Silence. Ren looked at him for a long time, calculating something. Then exhaled. His shoulders dropped slightly. That moment when a person decides not to lie. 2 months, he said, from the very start of the work here. No. Ren spoke evenly, no cowardice, no defiance. They came when they found out I was here, found me through old contacts. Pause. Family. I have a sister in the city and a nephew. They said if I didn't help, it would go badly for them. Rain listened. When did you last pass information? 3 days ago. Composition. Approximate numbers. Ren looked at him. Are you going to kill me? No. Why not? Because the sister and the nephew are real. Rain spoke without anger and without warmth. You betrayed because there was no way out. That is not good, but it is understandable. Then what? Then we think together, said Rain. Ren looked at him for a long time. You are a strange man, he said. I've been told. Seriously strange. Anyone else in your place? I am not anyone else, said Rain. A council that same night, now with Ren. Cert looked at him with that cold assessment of a commander who works with facts. Kel, harder. First, expressionless. Ren told everything. What did you pass on? Asked Cert. Approximate number of people. Confirmed the presence of Sar. That the fort is fortified. Ren spoke without embellishment. He did not pass on the defense plans because they didn't exist when he was passing information. And because he didn't want to. Didn't want to, repeated Kel. I did not betray with pleasure, said Ren. That is the difference. A small difference. For me, it's a large one. Rain stopped this with a gesture of his hand. Ren, you can pass them anything. Yes? Then pass them a lie. Everyone looked. Disinformation, said Cert slowly. They expect information from Ren, said Rain. They trust it. He is a verified source. He will pass on that the western column can move safely. The forest from the west is open. We don't know about it. And we will know. We will be waiting for the western column in the forest to the west. Silence. This works if they don't verify through another source, said Kel. They have no other sources in this forest, said Ren. I know my handlers. They are lazy. Why verify if there's a working source? Are you certain? 90%. Good odds, said Rain. And the sister, said Ren quietly. If they find out I passed a lie. Tor, said Rain. Everyone looked. Tor knows the gray border, knows the people. Rain looked at Ren. You'll give me the name and address? Yes. Tor will get your sister and nephew out of the city before it begins. Here or east, wherever they want to go. Ren was silent for a long time. You will do this, he said. For me. After what I did. A child as a hostage, said Rain. No need to think long. Ren closed his eyes, opened them. All right, he said. I'll pass them what you tell me. Tor left the next morning, quickly, traveling light. Rain walked him to the edge of the forest. Will you make it in time? Asked Tor. Should. If I don't make it, if they've already moved them, or… Do what you can, said Rain. That is enough. Tor looked at him. Rain. When all of this is over, well or badly, you know what will happen next. What? This place will become known, said Tor. Not by rumor, truly. People will find out what happened here, and they'll start coming in greater numbers. He looked straight ahead. Are you ready for that? Rain thought. No, he said honestly, but that's no reason to stop. Tor smiled. Left. 3 weeks passed like water. The fort lived on 2 levels simultaneously. Ordinary life on the surface, preparation beneath. Training, supplies, positions in the forest that First and Kel chose together, silently, with the coordination of people who had learned to think alike. Ren passed the disinformation 5 days in. There was no reply. That was good. A reply would have meant verification, doubt. Silence meant they had accepted it, noted it, moved on. Tor returned 4 days before the deadline. With 2 people, a woman of about 25, frightened but holding herself together. A boy of about 8, serious beyond his years, looking at the Tsar without fear, rather with that childlike curiosity that is stronger than fear. Ren saw them in the courtyard. Stopped. The sister looked at him. Alive? She said. Alive? He answered. The boy walked up to Ren, tugged at his sleeve. Uncle. There are demons there. Tsar, Ren corrected. Call them Tsar. Tsar, the boy repeated. Then turned to the nearest Tsar, the young one, Sir. Looked at him. Can you see in the dark? Sir was surprised. Nodded. Will you show me? Asked the boy. Sir looked at Rain. Rain shrugged. Sir took the boy by the hand and led him somewhere. Ren watched them go with that expression that comes when something that had ached for a long time suddenly lets up a little. The army came on the 18th day after the council. Rain felt it 2 hours before. Thousands of auras, metal, horses. The main column from the south by road, openly, with drums. General Seven marched honestly, without attempting to hide. He knew he was seen, the western column, an hour after the main one, in the forest. Quietly. They thought quietly. First was waiting for them with 20 Tsar, from positions he had been choosing for 2 weeks. Rain waited with Kel and 10 of Surt's men. Stood nearby, pale, with hands that trembled slightly, not from fear but from the aura that was seeking an outlet. Said Rain quietly. Yes. Do you remember what I said about mana? Don't command it. Listen. Yes. Rain looked at him. The mages in that column command their mana. That is their way. Your mana lives differently. Pause. Don't try to fight them by their rules. Fight the way you know how. The way I know how, unpredictably. Exactly. Exhaled, closed his eyes, opened them. The aura around him quietly ignited, unstable, flickering, with those random surges that the Academy considered a defect. Rain looked at this and thought, no, not a defect. A weapon that doesn't yet know it is a weapon. The western column entered the forest. 800 people in the dark under the trees. This is loud, clumsy, with a loss of formation and visibility. The mages walked in the center of the column, protected, with shields at the ready. First attacked from the flank simultaneously. Not killing, the Tsar could, but Rain had said, stop them, don't destroy. First understood. They struck with auras, dark, oppressive, the kind that make people see what isn't there and hear what isn't there. The column fell apart. Did not run, fell apart. The front ones stopped, the middle ones pushed forward, the rear ones lost their bearings. In the darkness of the forest, 800 people became 800 separate frightened people. The mages reacted. 3 bursts of aura, Sharp, combat grade, textbook perfect. They cleared the space around them, created shields, searched for the source of the attack. Stepped out from behind a tree. One of the combat mages turned to him, assessed him, young, inexperienced, struck with standard combat pressure, strong, enough to kill. Ert's aura did not reflect it, did not block it, simply absorbed it, briefly, incorrectly, with that flickering that was his nature. Absorbed it and gave it back differently, not in the direction it came from, not as it came. Sideways, upward, it splashed across the trees. The mage looked at this for a few seconds. Those few seconds were enough for Rain. He stepped out beside Ert. 3 combat mages looked at him, at the dark aura that in the forest at night was visible like smoke from a fire. "Who among you is the senior one?" asked Rain. Silence. "I am," said one. "Not young, with the bearing of a high-ranking academy mage." "Listen carefully," said Rain. "Your people are alive. My people are alive. I want it to stay that way. There are 800 of us. Count how many you can see beside you right now." The mage looked around. Darkness, trees, the scattered column. About 30 people nearby, the rest lost in the forest. "Take your people away," said Rain. "Tell General 7 that the western path is closed. Let him make his decision." The mage looked at him for a long time. "You understand that we will come back. I understand that General 7 is a smart man who doesn't like losing people." Rain looked straight at him. "He will weigh the cost. Let him weigh it." The main column stopped at the gates of the fort. General 7 rode forward on horseback, looked at the walls, at the people on the walls, at Rain, who stood at the gates alone, having returned from the forest before the column reached the fort. "The western column," said the general, "in the forest, alive, roughed up." 7 looked at him, an old soldier with the eyes of a man who had seen many campaigns and knew how to count losses. "You let them through. Stop them," Rain corrected. "There is a difference." "Why?" "Because I don't need 800 dead soldiers." Rain spoke evenly. "And neither do you." The general was silent. "What do you want?" he said at last. "The same thing I wanted when the first army came," answered Rain. "To be left alone. We live here. We don't touch the cities. We don't touch the roads. We trade honestly." He looked at the general. "This is not a threat to the king. This is a place for those who have nowhere." "The advisor thinks otherwise." "The advisor is young and he needs a victory," said Rain. "You are old and you have already won. The difference is that you know a victory that costs too much is not a victory." 7 looked at him for a long time, then turned to his adjutant. "Make camp. I am waiting for a messenger from the western column. Not an order to advance. Not an order to retreat. To wait." Rain returned to the fort. The messenger from the western column arrived 2 hours later. An hour after that, 7 sent his man to the gates with a note. Rain read it. "I am a soldier. The order is to take or destroy. But the order was given by a man who was not in this war and will not be in it. I was. I know the cost. I am returning. I will report that the position is impregnable and the losses would be catastrophic. This is the truth, so it is not a lie. The advisor will send another. Be ready." Rain folded the note. In the courtyard, people and Sar looked at him. Waiting. "They left," he said. A collective exhale, several voices at once. "For long?" asked Sert. "No," Rain answered honestly. "Not for long." He looked at the fort, at the people, at the Sar. "But we will use the time." Ren stood to the side with his sister and nephew. The boy was tugging at Seer's hand and asking something in a whisper, pointing at the sky. Sir was answering. Rain watched this. The anger had gone nowhere, cold, quiet, constant. But alongside it, that very thing, without a name yet, growing, small, alive, enough. Winter came earlier than usual. Snow fell at the end of autumn, heavy with moisture. Not the dry northern snow, but the kind that presses on roofs and bends trees. The fort held. The 2 brothers from the east who knew how to work with stone had reinforced the roofs back in summer, as if they had known. Perhaps they had. Builders sense the weather before it comes. Life inside was dense. 70-odd people in SAR in a space built for a smaller number. Cramped. Noisy. With those small conflicts that are inevitable when many people live close together. Rain walked through the fort and observed. He did not intervene in small matters. Surt handled those better. Surt knew how to talk to people, so they agreed, not out of fear, but because they heard the sense in it. A good commander. Rain had known this from the first day. He watched the large things. The large things changed slowly, but they changed. Ren, after the story with the betrayal and his sister, had become different. Not abruptly, without announcements. He simply worked more and spoke less. That silence that comes to people when they have nothing to prove because they have already proven everything to themselves. Kel and First sometimes sat side by side. They barely talked, but side by side. Trained every day. After the forest, when his aura had absorbed the combat mage's strike, he looked at himself differently. Not with arrogance, but with that quiet recognition of a person who realized he had been considered a defect, and it turned out he was not. Ren's boy, the nephew named Sul, followed Sir around like a shadow. This had started on the first day and had not stopped. Sir at first did not know what to do with an 8-year-old human who looked up at him with absolute trust. Then he got used to it. Then he himself searched for him with his eyes if Sul disappeared somewhere. First noticed this and said to Rain one evening, "We have few children among the Sar, none for a long time. I know, that is bad for the species." "I know," Rain repeated. "Sul is human, but Sir looks at him the way one looks at one's own." "Yes. You think about this." "I think about it," said Rain. First was silent. "A place where they live together," he said at last. "This is hard to explain to other Sar who are not yet here, but Sul explains it better than any words." "I know," said Rain for the third time. First looked at him. "You say I know often, because I often do, and when you don't." "I stay silent," said Rain. Tor arrived in the middle of winter deliberately, not on schedule. He brought no goods. He brought news. The advisor in the capital was pushing the idea of a new campaign. 3,000 had yielded no result. The advisor was asking the king for 10. With combat mages of the highest rank. With siege equipment. "Siege equipment against a forest fort," said Surt. "The advisor is young," said Tor. "He thinks force solves everything." And the king? The king is thinking. He has not given permission, but he has not refused either. Rain sat by the fire, listening, thinking. "What else?" he asked. Tor hesitated. "Rare for him." "Speak," said Rain. "Rumors." Tor looked at him. "In several cities people are talking about the cellar, not fearfully, differently." "How?" "As a place one can go to," said Tor. "There is a rumor that everyone is accepted here, that no one asks where you're from. That Sar and people live side by side." "That is true." "Yes. But you understand what that means." Rain understood. "More people will come. Many." Tor looked at him. "Not only good ones. Those who have nowhere is a broad definition. Among them will be those who have nowhere because they have done something." "I know," said Rain. And we will sort it out." Rain looked into the fire. "Nowhere and deserving are different things. We will learn to tell them apart." Tor looked at him for a long time. "Rain, you are 20. Where do you come from like this?" "From the cellar," answered Rain simply. "In spring they came. Not an army. People. One by one, in twos, sometimes in small groups. From different places, with different stories, with that common thing Rain had learned to see at once, the look of a person who had walked a long way and had not been sure they would arrive. Rain met each one. Not ceremoniously, he simply met them. Looked. A few questions. Not where from and what have you done, that was unimportant until it became important. Do you know how to do anything? What do you want? Are you ready to work? Most said yes. They know something. They want a place. They are ready. A woman mage arrived, about 40, with an academy education, with those particular calluses on her hands that come from years of working with mana. Skilled, Rain felt this immediately. "Why did you leave the academy?" he asked. "I didn't leave. They expelled me." "For what?" I taught those who weren't supposed to be taught, she said. Evenly, without bitterness, she had long since come to terms with it. I took students without nobility and without payment. The academy does not welcome that. What is your name? Lei. Rain looked at who stood at his shoulder. Lei, this is unstable aura, 16 years old, never properly taught. Lei looked at a professional glance. Quick. Unstable is interesting, she said. Not by the rules, warned. Rules are written by those who learn from other people's books, said Lei. I prefer to look at what works. Looked at her with the expression of a person not used to that kind of answer. Lei stayed. An old man arrived. Very old, about 70, with a staff and a bag of books that clearly weighed more than the food in the same bag. Who are you? Asked Rain. A historian, said the old man. A former royal one. 5 years ago, I wrote a book about the demonic war in which I said that both sides bear responsibility. He shrugged. They expelled me. Why are you here? I want to write the truth about what is happening here, said the old man simply. While it is happening. He looked at Rain. Important things must be written down. Otherwise, they will be distorted later, Rain thought. Write what you see, he said. No embellishing, no concealing. Otherwise, why write? Then stay. The old man nodded. Plainly, as if that was how it should be. What is your name? Asked Rain. Vern, said the old man. Vern, first we'll speak with you if you ask. About the demonic war from the other side? Vern stopped, turned around. First is Asar. Yes. He will. Agree? Ask him yourself. But most likely, yes. He is tired of the version where his kind does not exist as people. Vern looked at Rain for a long time. You are 20 years old, he said. Yes. You think like a man of 50. Or like a person who spent 10 years alone with himself, answered Rain. 3 people came whom Rain stopped. He did not turn them away. He stopped them at the gates. 2 men and a woman. Normal looking. Tired. With that story of having nowhere that Rain had already heard many times. But something caught his attention. Sir stood nearby. Rain did not look at him. He looked at the 3. At the edge of his attention, he sensed the young Sar. Sir gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. That very sign. Old fear. Not new. Rain looked at the 3. Where are you coming from? From the south, said the older one. Smoothly, without hesitation. Too smoothly, well rehearsed. How long? 3 weeks. Through which city? Serval. Serval burned down 2 years ago, said Rain. There is no city there. Silence. The 3 exchanged glances. Quickly, almost imperceptibly, Rain stood and waited. The older one exhaled. The advisor sent us, he said. I know. Then why did you ask? I was checking whether you would lie. And you lied, said Rain, which means unreliable agents. The advisor chose poorly. He looked at them without malice. I won't touch you. Leave and tell the advisor you were exposed in the first minute. He won't like that. That is his problem. The older one looked at him. You always let people go, he said. Not mockery, something else. Something resembling an attempt to understand. Almost always, answered Rain. Why? Because dead agents of the advisor will give him a reason. Rain looked straight ahead. The living will return and tell what they saw. That there are people here. That there are children here. That there is building here. Pause. That is harder to destroy than an abstract threat. The 3 stood there. The woman, the one who had been silent the whole time, said, They won't take us back if we failed the mission. Rain looked at her. How many of you? 3 won't be taken back. Then you have a choice, said Rain. Go somewhere else. Or stay here. After we came as agents. Yes. Why? Because you told the truth when you understood there was no point in lying, said Rain. That means something. The 3 exchanged glances again, this time differently. Not conspiratorially, in confusion. The older one first. I know how to build, he said. I know it well. The 2 brothers from the east will show you where to stand, said Rain. They came in. The historian took a corner in the quietest part of the fort, a small room where tools had previously been stored. He arranged his books, found a table somewhere, sat down and began to write. Rain looked in once. Vern did not raise his head. "What are you writing about now?" asked Rain. "You," said Vern. "What exactly?" "How you receive people, what you ask, how you decide." Vern dipped his pen. "This is more important than battles. Everyone describes battles. No one describes how decisions are made. I don't always decide correctly." "All the more interesting," said Vern. Rain stood there. "Vern, did you speak with First?" 3 days. The historian finally raised his head. "Do you know that he remembers by name 37 people killed at the Iron Gates?" "I didn't know." "He remembers. Names. Faces." Vern looked at Rain. He thought it was his curse, that remembering those he had killed was a punishment. "I told him something different." "What did you tell him?" "That it is human," said Vern simply. "Only human, to remember faces. Animals don't have this. Demons, which they are considered to be by legend, don't have this." The old man looked at Rain. First wept. Sar don't weep, they have no tears physically. But he wept as best he could. Rain was silent. "This is important to know," said Vern. "Not for the book. Simply important to know about someone who walks beside you." "Thank you," said Rain. "Don't thank me. Go. I have writing to do." That night Rain found First on the wall. He stood beside him, said nothing. First did not ask what had happened. He felt that Rain knew about Vern and the conversation. They stood for a long time. 37, said Rain at last. "Yes. You remember them?" "Yes." "That is not weakness." "I know," said First. "Now I know." Vern explained it strangely but correctly. How did he explain it? He said that memory of those one has killed is the duty of the living to the dead, that to forget them is worse than to remember. First looked into the darkness. "I carried this as a burden for 30 years. It turns out it was not a burden. It was right." Rain thought about this. About Kern by the stove. About how Kern too had remembered his dead, other people's dead. Remembered and carried them as a burden. And had not found a way to turn the burden into something else. Perhaps if he had found a way, everything would have turned out differently. Perhaps not. "First," said Rain. "Yes. Did you ever want a different life? Before the war, before all of this?" First thought for a long time. "Yes," he said at last. "I wanted to teach the young Sar how to hear the forest. That was my calling before the war. I was good at it." He looked at the sky. Then war came and everything became different. "Sir," said Rain. "Yes." "I see." First was silent for a moment. "He hears the forest well. Better than I did at his age." "Then teach him." "I have been thinking about it." "Stop thinking and start." First looked at Rain. With that expression that rarely appeared on him, something warm behind the cold gray skin and red eyes. "You speak again like one who is 50. Or like one who knows that time is not infinite," answered Rain. In spring, the advisor came himself. Without an army, with a guard of 20 people, well armed, but without an army. Rain learned of this from Sir, who had sent them 3 hours out. He went to meet them at the edge of the forest alone, without weapons, without Sar at his back. The advisor was young. Tor had not exaggerated. About 28. A good face, intelligent, with that particular energy of people who are accustomed to being listened to. He looked at Rain, at the white aura that now was visible even by day, not dark, not light, something in between, his own. Rain himself did not understand when it had changed. One day Lay simply said, "Your aura has become different." Rain looked. "Yes? Different." "You are younger than I thought," said the advisor. "So are you," answered Rain. The advisor smiled slightly. "Do you want to talk here or there?" "Here," said Rain. "I don't need you to have seen the fort. I already saw it from the tree line. From the outside. That is enough." The advisor nodded. Sat down on a fallen tree without ceremony. The guard kept their distance. "You stopped the army 3 times without significant losses," said the advisor. "That is impressive. You didn't come here for that." "No." The advisor looked at him directly. I came because I want to understand what you are building. Truly, you read the reports. Reports are written by people who are afraid. When they are afraid, they exaggerate. The advisor looked at Rain. I want to see for myself. Why does it matter to you? Because I am an advisor and my job is to give the king correct counsel. Pause. 3 attempts to destroy you have yielded no result. A 4th will succeed if there are enough resources. But before asking for resources, I want to understand why. You think perhaps it's not worth it. I think so, the advisor said honestly. Rain looked at him. A young man with an intelligent face who had come without an army and spoke directly. That was either very smart or very naive. With such people, the difference between the two is determined by one thing, whether they are prepared to hear an answer they did not expect. Ask, said Rain. What are you building? A place. What kind of place? For those who have nowhere. Rain spoke without embellishment. People who were cast out. Sar, who had been wanted destroyed for 30 years. A mage the academy would not take. A demon hunter who found common ground with a demon. He looked at the advisor. This is not an army, not a state, simply a place. A place that accepts people rejected by society as a political threat, said the advisor. Only if those people want to take revenge on society. Rain looked at him. They want to live. A fine distinction. A fundamental distinction, the advisor thought. Truly thought, not for show. The Sar, he said. That is more complicated. For the kingdom, the Sar are remnants of the horde. To publicly accept that they live alongside people and that this is normal, politically that is, I am not asking you to accept it publicly, said Rain. I am asking you not to touch us. A difference. Yes, a large one. The advisor looked at him for a long time. You know that I am young and I need a victory, he said. I know. Then you understand that simply leaving and letting you be is not a victory. Depends on how you frame it, said Rain. How to frame it. A neutralized threat, said Rain. A threat of demonic scale that 3 armies could not take by force, taken by negotiation. An advisor who found a solution where his predecessors sent soldiers. He looked at him. That is a victory, of a different kind. The advisor was silent. You thought about this before you came, he said. Yes. And the wording too. Yes. 20 years old. The advisor shook his head. Where do you come from like this? From the cellar, answered Rain for the 3rd time in his life, to someone who did not understand. They spoke for another 2 hours. They did not reach an agreement. That would have been too fast and too simple. But the advisor listened. With genuine listening, not the kind where one waits for the other person to go quiet. Leaving, he stopped. Rain, one personal question. Yes. You killed your father. Yes. Do you regret it? Rain thought. He thought about Kern by the stove. About what the old man had said, I understand. About how he had understood too late but had understood nonetheless. I regret that it was the only way, said Rain. About the rest? No. The advisor nodded, left with the guard into the forest. Rain stood at the tree line. Surt came over. He had been waiting at a distance the entire time of the conversation. What do you think? Asked Rain. A smart boy, said Surt. A dangerous type. Those who think during the conversation are more dangerous than those who think before it. Yes, he'll come back. Yes. Rain looked at the forest where the advisor's guard had disappeared. In time. With an agreement or with an army? We'll see, said Rain. That same night, Rain sat on the wall, alone. Quiet. The fort below lived its nighttime life. Lights in the windows, voices muffled, the smell of smoke and food cooking from somewhere. Mott never slept before midnight. The forge burned, quietly, without the daytime noise. Sol, Ren's nephew, leaned out of a first-floor window, saw Rain on the wall, waved. Rain raised his hand. Sol disappeared back inside. A minute later, he climbed up onto the wall beside him, puffing, helping himself with his knees. Sat down, looked at the forest. You're not sleeping, said Rain. Sir was telling me about the forest, said Sol. How it lives at night. Now I want to hear it. Rain said nothing. The boy listened. Seriously, genuinely. He was not pretending to hear, he was really listening. Good ears on the child. There, said Saul suddenly. To the left. Something large is moving. A moose, said Rain. By the sound of the steps. You heard it? Yes. Sir always hears too. Saul looked into the darkness. I want to be like that, to hear the forest. First teaches Sir. Sir will teach you. You think Sir will? You have been following him around for half a year, said Rain. He is already teaching you. He just doesn't call it teaching. Saul thought about this. Rain. Yes? And what did you learn? To wait, said Rain. 10 years. Was that taught to you? No. It came on its own. Is waiting good? Sometimes, said Rain. When there is no other way. When there is another way, it is better not to wait. Saul thought about this with the seriousness of an 8-year-old child who takes other people's words in a genuine way, without discounting them for age. I understand, he said at last. They sat a little longer. The moose in the forest passed by. The steps faded into the depths of the trees. Go to sleep, said Rain. A little longer. Saul. All right, said the boy reluctantly. He climbed down from the wall the same way, puffing on his knees. Good night. Good night. He left. Rain remained alone. The anger, quiet. The ice, solid. Beneath the ice, a river. Alive, gone nowhere, his nature. But above it, snow had fallen, clean. The kind that falls without wind, in silence, when everything has gone still and it seems the world has stopped for a moment, and simply is. Rain sat on the wall of his fort, looked at the forest, thought about the advisor who would return soon, about the 10,000 soldiers who might come or might not, about the need to build faster and smarter, about Vern who writes, and about how what is written will last longer than any army. He thought about first who tomorrow will begin teaching Seer to hear the forest, about Lei, who found in Ert's unstable aura something she delighted in each time as if it were new, about Sul and his serious ears listening to the night moose, a cold man, a dark aura, 10 years of the cellar, 20 years of life. All of this was true, and everything that was below was also true. Both truths fit inside one person. Rain sat and thought that perhaps in this lies the answer to the question no one had asked aloud, but which had hung in the air from the very first day. Who are you? One who came out of the cellar, and one who builds so that others won't have to.